You know, Tom, I ain't the best guitar player in the world. I mean, I can play, but Mac McAnally, my lead guitar player, can play circles around me. And come on, Tom, you know I'm not the best singer in the world either.
I'd just like to say that Buffett needs to start going sailing more.
Hell, if I was, I wouldn't need you to coach me now, would I?
He's out there with those rednecks, and he's losing touch with the sea. He's been out on our boat before. Yes.
Bottom line, I ain't the best player in the world. I ain't even the best singer in the world, but it's my name on all the sold-out theater signs up there. Why? Because I'm the best goddamn Jimmy Buffett in the world. The ocean is one of the most beautiful things to me. Something so massive, so genuine, that just lies across our planet. The ocean sits quietly, concealing secrets and sustaining life for millions of creatures, including us. Living in landlocked states for the entirety of my life, seeing the ocean has always been something special to me. Movies and music were often the only ways I could see and feel its beauty in my life. Growing up, I was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean, wishing that I could have a pirate ship and seek out buried treasure while sailing across those blue horizons. From my rose-tinted look at the sea, its musical sound has naturally made its way into my life time and time again. Sometimes it was Frank Sinatra singing about how deep the ocean was, or Zac Brown Band describing the beauty of island life. The ocean just has this personality in music that is so incredibly unique. As a kid, it made me feel like I could be anybody, and consequently, made me long for a life of peace and ocean wave tranquility. But there is a figure in the music world that is so connected to the ocean that it formed his entire identity. A man whose life philosophy transcended musical genres and inspired countless artists to create some of the most popular songs in American history. A man who was so passionate about living life to the fullest that his music will continue to be played on as long as the oceans crash upon their shores. You can't love the ocean without loving the man who shared its paradise. Jimmy Buffett.
Passing through the coast as you do, what kind of changes have you noticed over the years? The growth or just the changes in people?
It's pretty much, in perspective, as much traveling as I do around the country and around the world. It seems to remain pretty consistent to me, Maybe that's because it's got the hell knocked out of it by the hurricane, and that probably retarded growth. But it's nice. I always like to come back.
Born in the ocean town of Pascagoula, Mississippi on December 25th, 1946, Jimmy Buffett grew up with a love for the sea. His upbringing was sustained by the sea, with his father working as a marine engineer and his grandfather working as a sea captain. He spent his time reading everything he could find about the ocean, from Moby Dick to idle days in Patagonia. In high school, he played trombone and found himself gravitating towards music. A couple of years later, he enrolled at Auburn University and learned to play guitar from a fraternity brother. As he grew up, the ocean continued to provide for him. In college, he worked in a shipyard, giving him enough money to start up his very own band. From that point on, Buffett applied his philosophy of the sea towards his music. Quote, "I run my band like a boat, like I'm the captain."
Your lifestyle really is one that most of us would give our right arm to have. How do you get away with this?
Well, I go to the office in the morning and I get about... How do I get away with it? It's always been what I've wanted to do.
As time went on throughout the 1970s, Jimmy Buffett would play small-time gigs from New Orleans to Nashville, until he ended up down in Key West. By day, Buffett worked as a first mate on a yacht. By night, Buffett was signing part-time contracts, playing for drinks, and learning to write. Life was simple, and Jimmy Buffett continued to share his passion with the world. But as much as this story has been sunshine and beauty, the event that kickstarted Buffett's career was the exact opposite.
You know, sometimes you find yourself in a situation, I know I've found myself there for a whole long time, period of character development where the job that you have doesn't always match up with the idea of the job that you think you should have, you know, and you get kind of depressed about it. I've had whole lots of jobs like that. This one especially has that feeling.
Late in the night on September 20th, 1973, Jim Croce and 5 other people loaded onto a plane to continue the Life and Times tour. A year prior, Croce released one of the most beautiful poetic songs ever, Time in a Bottle. A piece of music that discusses the limitless potential of love. Croce wrote that song the same night his wife told him she was expecting their first child. The piece of music dives back and forth between a minor and major reflection on life and love, a testament to the beauty and confusion of those topics. Approximately 1 year later, audience members at Northwestern University described how Croce seemed tired on stage, signs of a long tour, and a yearning for home. Back in San Diego, his wife waited patiently for him to return from the tour. It is difficult to imagine the exhaustion he was feeling when he boarded that plane, on its way to yet another city to be blessed by his poetry. The plane would never make it there.
If Jim Croce ever would have an epitaph written about him, it probably would be, "I hate to bring anybody down," because he really hated to bring anybody down. He said, "I'm having a good time doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep on doing it."
Late in the night on September 20th, 1973, Jim Croce and 5 other people were killed in a plane crash when colliding with a tree at the end of a runway. Croce was only 30 years old, and the next day, the piece, I Got a Name, would be released.
Would you, this is his first Tonight Show appearance. Would you welcome, please, Jimmy Buffett?
Earlier that year, Buffett had just signed a recording contract with A.B. Sill/Dunhill Records, who were partners with Jim Croce at the time of his death. After the tragedy occurred, Buffett was offered a more prominent role to take Croce's place, which is really something impossible to do. Jimmy Buffett decided to fill that role the only way he knew how, by showing his love for stories and the sea. He wasn't going to try and replace one of the most incredible musicians of our time. He was just going to keep being Jimmy Buffett. His Contract's debut album, A White Sport Coat and a Pink Crustacean, would be regarded as one of his best and gave him opportunities to further extend his career. And since he finally made some decent money, he decided to buy his first boat. Quote, with the money he made from his second album, which wasn't that much, he bought his first boat, a Choi Lee Offshore 33, and thought of it as an insurance policy. His accountant told him he was crazy, but Buffett knew if the music thing didn't work out, quote, I can live on the boat and go where I want. Throughout the rest of the 1970s, Buffett continued to release the music that made him happy. Hit after hit about the ocean, living life free, and drinking on the beach. Life was going well, and Buffett was starting to make a name for himself. At the start of the year in 1977, the album Changes in Latitudes, Changes in Attitudes would be released. From this album, Buffett's breakthrough song would be shown to the world, one that I almost guarantee you are aware of, because it is in just about every airport ever. In January of 1977, the world would be blessed with his most popular song by far, Margaritaville. It reached number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100, peaked at 13 on the Hot Country Songs chart, and just recently resurfaced the top 40 again in September last year. The topic of the song was inspired by a shockingly bad day Buffett had at the beach. He grieves how he lost one of his flip-flops walking back from the bar, cut his foot on a beer can pop top, and ran out of salt for his margarita. His producer, Norbert Putnam, would listen to Buffett's story and tell him it was, quote, a terrible idea for a song. And for a man who always put the beach first in his life, it would ironically be a song cursing a beach that solidified Jimmy Buffett as one of the most influential country musicians ever.
This is not the first time you've broken that leg, I understand.
3 times, same year. Once in a bar.
Now tell me, how do you break your leg 3 times in 1 year?
Very stupid.
Once in a bar?
First time playing softball, summer league softball, thinking you're 18, and
That's
Pete
right.
Rose
Weekend
digging
stuff.
for second.
Right.
And then when it went, I'll never forget the sound, And then, so I broke at that time, and then I was on my way up to New York to do some work, and happened to slip off of a bar stool one night while I was forgetting my broken leg.
Must have been in a winter, icy-covered bar stool last night.
Oh, yes, bitter cold winter in New York.
Over the years, Margaritaville has been covered by a multitude of musicians and inspired works of others. Alan Jackson, Zac Brown Band, Kenny Chesney, Toby Keith, Blake Shelton, Billy Currington, Sugarland, Little Big Town, Luke Bryan, Old Dominion, Jake Owen, and more were all involved with Buffett's Margaritaville sound and legacy. Margaritaville offered the opportunity for the world to see what Jimmy Buffett was all about, and soon his previous works started to become popular as well. If this song was only popular, that would be one thing, but it legitimately inspired a trend in country music from that point on. Soon, top musicians in the genre were releasing their own takes on the themes of Margaritaville, sharing their love for the beach life in new and unique ways. The legacy of Jimmy Buffett's career was beginning to take shape before his eyes, where his passion and love for the sea was being heard in homes all around the world. As time moved forward, Jimmy Buffett continued to live the exact same lifestyle. Only this time, it was in front of thousands of fans. In 1987, he opened his first location of Margaritaville in Key West to massive success. In 1994, he collaborated with Frank Sinatra, a figure also known for living his life how he wanted in some particularly interesting ways. 2 years later, Buffett was shot in his plane by the Jamaican government. At the time, the government mistakenly thought the aircraft was smuggling marijuana. They apologized later. 2 years after that, he would attend Frank Sinatra's funeral. In 1999, he was condemned by the U.S. National Council of Teachers of Mathematics and National Education Association for releasing the song Math Sucks. Yes, it is spelled like that. In 2003, he partnered with Alan Jackson to release the massive hit It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere. This was a song that performed so well that people still quote it throughout the day. In 2010, he partnered with Zac Brown Band on the song Knee Deep, becoming one of their most popular songs almost instantly. It seemed that wherever Jimmy Buffett went, good things happened. Except Jamaica, I guess. He continued to tour for the majority of his life, performing his last concert in San Diego in 2023.
During our college days at Villanova University, we used to play a lot at Jim's house. We used to spend a lot of weekends there playing folk music, and his father would say, he says, what you guys are doing, it's really a lot of fun, he said, but don't ever let it become your job. He says, you're going to both wind up being bums. And that kind of set a little bit of a conflict in Jim and led to his somewhat indecisive feeling about being a professional musician.
A week before a plane takes off in the middle of the night in Louisiana, Jim Croce walks the streets of San Diego with his wife. At the age of 30, he points to the corner of 5th and E Streets and tells his wife that's where it's going to be. A beautiful restaurant for family, friends, and people who love music. Croce's Restaurant and Jazz Bar opened in 1985 and was owned and managed by his wife Ingrid. The location stayed open for almost 30 years to share the love for music that Jim held so closely with his own music creation. Unfortunately, finding customers for live music was becoming something of the past, and in 2013 the location closed down. Quote, "Croce's didn't close because we weren't making money. It died because of the music."
As the son of a sailor, is touring anything like sailing?
A lot of comparisons, yeah. It's, I think the biggest comparison is probably everybody thinks that sailing is an easy thing and it's always a beautiful day. Well, that's not necessarily true, and it's the same way. Everybody wants to grow up to be a rock star because it looks so easy, but it's a hard job, you know. It's quite an analogy between sailing and being on the road, believe me. Yeah, because it's not always fair skies and calm seas, believe me. I know.
On September 1st, 2023, Jimmy Buffett passed from skin cancer surrounded by his family. Just a couple of months earlier, he was performing in San Diego for thousands of his dedicated fans, generations of people brought together by his love and passion for life. His sister, Lucy, who lived their whole life knowing how incredible Jimmy was, would say, quote, "He didn't care about resting in peace. The last words he whispered to me were, 'Have fun.'" Buffett's legacy can be summed up in one word: fun. Everything he did in his life was infused with this moral philosophy that life should always be lived to the fullest and that everything happens for a reason. The more that I listen to his music, the more I can hear his messages pouring into my brain, a passion for all things worth being passionate for. He lived and died as the exact same person, with the exact same philosophy and the exact same heart. He was married to his wife, Jane, for 46 years, and they raised 3 kids together. He raised over $12 million through his partnerships with Singing for Change and Save the Manatees. He changed lives by being the person that he was, not by being somebody else. All of his imperfections, nuances, and beliefs were on display throughout his life, and he lived by them every day. I didn't know it growing up, but so many things I loved about music were impacted by Jimmy Buffett in some way. I grew up listening to Kenny Chesney and Zac Brown Band, among other musicians who established their careers off of the genre that Buffett created. But the sound of the beach that I knew was created by Jimmy Buffett. Frank Sinatra, one of my favorite musicians of all time, somehow collaborated with Jimmy Buffett. Margaritaville, a restaurant I always wanted to go to in airports because it had a plane hanging from the ceiling, was created by Jimmy Buffett. Time in a Bottle, a piece of music that stuck instantly with me by showing the power of lyrics, was written by a man whose story is connected with Jimmy Buffett. I find it poetic that the first Margaritaville hotel was opened just a couple blocks away from Croce's restaurant, just a couple weeks after Jimmy Buffett's death. If there's one thing that I have gained from writing this essay, it has been a deep appreciation for Jim Croce's music. For someone whose music and love was taken from us too soon, it would be a shame to live my life without knowing more of Jim Croce's story. As I sit here at the end of this crazy research adventure, I can only hope that the intertwined music of Buffett and Croce becomes a cultural constant. Music that is given more love than drops in the sea and preserved like time in a bottle. As a kid, I felt like I could be anybody I wanted growing up because of the ocean. It symbolized this great freedom of life a powerful being that could create storms of great magnitude and beautiful paradises. And if such an expansive thing could work so coordinated, who was to say I couldn't too? Maybe I could be a pirate or a sea captain. But if there's one thing that I learned from Jimmy Buffett, it's that I don't have to live my life trying to be somebody. Why? Because I'm the best goddamn me in the world.
Pretty normal people most of the time, but they have maybe a slight streak of insanity in their makeup, which comes out when they come to the show. I saw bad airbrushed t-shirts of me on the streets with my name spelled wrong, you know, and I realized, like it or not, I'd become a commodity. With all the personal experience, I was doing a lot of the things. I mean, I rocked and I had a roaring time for a good many years, and I don't apologize for it, and I don't regret it, but I don't do it anymore. What we were doing?
About what date? What date that was? That was about 2.5 years ago.
It was 2.5 years ago, and I had a broken leg at the time. I was only 2 days out of the hospital, and it was obviously propped up on a boat. They came out and they didn't know what to do with my leg, so they said, well, let's put a boat in the skit. So I was sitting up there and trying to keep him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Jackson. We're making a video and you're in it. Back home in South Florida. All right.
My audience is, I like to consider them the war baby generation, because I'm 35, and we're all growing older together. I mean, I thought it for a while when I'd sit up on the stage and look out at an audience.
We are going to take it, I guess, all the way from the beginning of this madness, which started right over there in Coconut Grove, and run it all the way up to the present day.
You know, and I thought I was somewhere disassociated in a way in age-wise, because I always thought of myself as 19 playing colleges. You know? But then all of a sudden you look, and we're all growing older together, and then, like, for whatever reasons, thank God, whatever the recession is in the music business, my crowds have remained faithful, and they still come out to see us all the time. And I think they always will, because they're that way, and we're all changing together, and I seem to reflect their feelings, because I'm one of them. I just got out and got to do the things they all wish they could. So the only way I can share it with them is in songs, and let them go put their Hawaiian shirts on.
Lola loves Frank, Frankie loves Lola.
Frank and Lola, a pair that started out in a song and in a Frankenstein manner became reality. And they now live at the Margaritaville store, and we're out for their daily ride. It's like taking your dog around the block. This is escapism, pure and simple. To me, there's not a better place to live. Every now and then. Better days. Better days. Everybody's looking for better days. Somewhere beneath a shining star. Better days. I sure could have used a few